Warm welcome to everyone who's joined us for this webinar, 1 year into the Pecten journey. 1 year ago, we had just really no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We had strong intentions to do something awesome. And it's really up to this group to let us know if that is good enough, if we can do even better, if it's already awesome, or what would awesome look like for you. We're really looking forward to engage with you on everything there is to know about Pecten. So good to know that there is 2 calls. This one is the first of 2. The first one that really is directed to an external audience. So in the audience, I see a mix of people who are already very active consultants, and there's some people who may want to become a Pecten consultant, but there are also people who are thinking about using the services of Pecten. So a really broad spectrum, which is great. And then there will be a second call, which is next week. And for anyone who's already a Pecten consultant, I recommend that you also join that one, because that second call will be going a bit more in depth in some of the areas that you may want to know more about. So this call will be conducted by Gary Hayes and myself. And thanks, Gary, for teaming up with me on that. I think we've really proven in the last year to be a good team together. So delighted to do that together. So let's dive right in. Here you see the agenda for the next hour. We will look a little bit back to the last year and everything that we wanted to do, but also what we have actually accomplished with a couple of client highlights and some voices from the consultant community. And then we will look at what's next, what's coming up, and how can we actually achieve something together. So for this, we would like to make use of a tool that can help you to make sure all the questions that come up whilst we're going through the agenda can be captured real time. And then later on, after about half an hour, we can answer all those questions. And that is the way how we can make sure we get both through the slides, but also make sure that all the questions that you may have are fully answered. So let me go here into the AHA slides, into the presentation mode. And here you already see the first couple of questions that have been submitted. And this is the easiest way how you can get your own questions into the AHA slide. So take your phone, take your normal phone, and open the photo area as if you were to make a photo of your screen. You point towards the QR code, something pops up, usually in yellow, and that will then allow you to submit any questions that come up. Okay, and then you can also see some questions that other people have already put in, and you can like them, and that way it floats to the top what you really want to have answered in the last half hour. Okay, so please all mute yourself, and I will repeat this little instruction occasionally to make sure you have all the opportunity to input your questions. So let me head back to the slides here and here. And let's just cover 2 slides from my side, and then I hand over to Gary, which really is about why do we exist? It really is a little bit of that, starting point of our history. We really have emerged from the Shell Alumni Network. We had a survey in May 2022, which was called Impact Survey. And it was all about what else would you like to see from the Shell Alumni Network? We are doing a lot of knowledge sharing. We're doing a lot of networking. What else would you like to see? And consulting was clearly the #1 that came out of that survey. So since then, we've been thinking how we can best address that. And so talking to Shell about ways of working, and we always make sure that they're kind of okay with the way we operate in the Shell Alumni Network. They clearly gave us the signal, if you want to do more with consulting, that's a great idea, and don't do that under the Shell Alumni Network. that model is constrained in the commercial space, do it under Pecten, make a separate legal entity. So that is what we've done. And we've really tried to evolve it in a way that really makes a unique value proposition for our consultants, first and foremost. Of course, clients are absolutely crucial for our long-term success, but the starting point was the consulting community and their need for transparency, wanting to know what the margins are for themselves as well as for the Pecten leaders, or really making sure that people are understood and known in terms of what their preferences are, and having them co-create Pecten with us. Eventually leading also to a distribution of shares amongst several consultants, and in the end of the day being an evergreen, ever-learning community that creates something that in the beginning maybe is very small, but hopefully eventually truly unique and special. So over to you, Gary, for the rest of the story.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. For me, it's actually evening because I'm calling in from Kazakhstan. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gary Hayes. I joined Pecten in February this year as the CEO. So I've missed the first 5 months of the journey, but I've certainly been a part of the last 7 months to bring us up to the full year. And as Dagmar just said, there were some good reasons why Pecten exists from the consultancy side, from the consultant side, from the Shell Alumni Network originally, but obviously there's also some good reasons why we think Pecten exists if we think of clients. And the first one links to something that Dagmar just said anyway, which is access. Yeah, one of the things that Pecten can offer clients is indeed access through our.
So Gary, I have just muted you by mistake. Can you please unmute yourself? That was my mistake.
Okay, I'm unmuted again.
Thank you. Yes. Apologies.
No problem. So one of the things that is important for clients that Pecten can offer is access. As I said, through our networks, we can offer the wide range of things and topics that Shell were admired for being good at, and source that expertise for clients if they're looking for that. And the second thing is the word multi, really. It's a prefix that sums up a lot of the things that Pecten is for our clients. You know, whether that's multinational and multicultural, you know, that's part of our DNA. Pecten has consultants with many nationalities and based all over the world. Whether that's multidisciplinary, multifunctional, our range of offerings, and we'll come to that a bit later in this presentation. Multi-versatile, multi-skilled. These are the things, obviously, that we offer for clients. And the third thing is the one team with your team. Yeah, we've faced client challenges in our working lives, and we have the experience and knowledge to deal with them and to help. Teamwork and the strength of working in teams is obviously also part of our historical DNA. And we develop and mentor client staff so that they can manage without us in the end. If we go to the next slide, the three main offerings there for consulting. Yeah, basis of any consultancy is consulting, and Pecten consultants are people who want to share their experience, as Dagmar just said, and knowledge, and help indeed to coach and mentor. And although all of our Pecten consultants have worked for Shell, they've also worked for many other companies in addition. So it's just not one view of the world that we're offering our clients. Our first assignments with Pecten, but before I joined, were actually in resourcing. Could we help fill or find someone to fill, you know, a role in a company or not? And of course, we have access to this wide network, and we were able to do that, and resourcing remains also one of the things that we offer. Learning and development, number 6, is an area of opportunity that we see. looking forward, certainly to 2025. And this again, we'll mention a bit later in terms of our offering. So we're going to get now to about Pecten consultants to talk briefly about some of the projects they've already done as part of Pecten. And if we hand the microphone over first to Olaf, the floor is yours, Olaf.
Yeah, good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. So I'm Olaf Skar, and I'm based in Dubai just now. So I'm actually sitting here in a hotel room. Prime Energy was a project that I was involved with back in May, June of this year. It's a very interesting thing. So Prime Energy is an offshoot, if you like, or it's the sort of output of the Malampaya project that Shell were running, which has been sold off and they're now standing on their own feet and delivering gas and energy to the Philippines. Very interesting project in my view. They're looking at the major capex project for their scale to drill a couple of extra development wells in the Malampaya field, as Shell people will know it as. But at the same time, of course, they are now cut loose from the mothership of Shell. And they're going through the challenges of finding their own way where, you know, there isn't a massive, big functional organization sitting behind them to help with all the assurance, etc. So what we did was project execution review. So it was basically testing readiness for a final investment decision. That decision had been delayed due to external factors. But I wanted to know that, hey, we're ready to rock and roll once that FID is actually forthcoming. Interesting, to say the least. It wasn't a matter of going there with a pre-prepared checklist like you would do in a Shell world, you know, where you have the assurance activities. No, actually, one of the things that we wanted to, and I think they wanted us to look into, was, well, what does a fit for purpose assurance framework look like for them? Yeah. What I found particularly interesting myself was, well, I was accountable for the HSC bit, and I took my frame of reference for the work we did from industry standards and industry best practices, rather than what Shell would bring. And I think, I think we delivered a lot of value for Prime in this particular case. I think they certainly appreciated our findings and our recommendations. And I would also add that I understand that the final investment decision has been taken now a month or two after this review. On the personal front, this was the first time in the Philippines for me. Very interesting. It gave me the opportunity to also look at and try and research cultural aspects of the Philippines before I went to test what the regulatory environment looks like there. So I get a lot of pleasure out of just learning more and becoming more useful. I see. Did I see Patrick on the call here as well? He was part of the team with me. We spent a great week there and some time beforehand, and working together and preparing for the review. So that's really what I was planning to say.
Thank you, Olaf. And indeed, Prime Energy, we've done a number of different projects with them so far. Tommy is probably in London, although he could be in Nigeria. Do you want to say a bit about the project that you project managed for us?
Yes, Gary, thank you. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone. My name is Tommy, and I'm sitting right here in the southeast of London. Just to talk about one of the projects that I've been part of for Pecten. So I worked on a project to revamp the competency framework for First E&P. Now, First E&P, First Exploration and Petroleum Development Company, is one of the leading integrated energy solutions provider based in Nigeria. They bought some assets off Shell. So they are both in the upstream oil and gas value chain. And this project was for us to help them freshen up or overhaul, if you like, their competency framework across all functions of the organization. Very interesting is that we were over 10 consultants who worked around the clock on that project. And of course, one of those consultants was also Olaf. And so it was very interesting because people were sitting in different parts of the world, but we were all working on the same project. And it was based on best practices and industry standard, just like Olaf also mentioned. And my contribution was looking at the competencies around human resources, safety, health and environment, security, and legal. And one of the things that we did that I think it's game changing for the organization is forcing them to really focus on competencies, which is the how and why of the job performance rather than the what, which was in the job description. So a lot of the things that we looked at were looking like the what, and what we tried to focus on for them was the how and the why, which for me, I think is very helpful for the organization. So we hear good things after that project around how impressed they were, and that there would be follow-on projects based on that. So it was a really good opportunity to go back and look at all the competency framework across the whole organization and be able to. I think one other interesting thing was around looking at the future when we were revamping the framework. So looking at the world of artificial intelligence, advanced computing, and of course ESG, and how do we bring that into the competency framework? And I think we were able to do that across the divide.
Yeah.
So that was really good for me, and it was good to touch base with a lot of former Shell colleagues and also meet new ones, especially.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Olaf. And I think both of these projects that they've just described really underline the first 3 points I said as why does Pecten exist for clients? It's access to skills, knowledge, resources. It's the multidisciplinary, multifunctional, multinational, multicultural that we were there as well. And it's the one team with and the one team with your team. And the one team with your team, which is indeed, we were able to put together teams from different parts of the world to become part of the team with our clients. The next slide is yours, Dagmar.
Exactly. And I think there's nothing better than starting with two very concrete stories to exemplify of what some of our consultants have done. Great work, Tommy and Olaf. Thanks so much. And we continue to love to work with you and everyone else. But just really in one slide summarized of where we were exactly a year from now and where we are today, this slide may be helpful. So you may all have been in a situation where you had this blank sheet of paper and nothing on it, and the questions from the 1,000 things that you could do. What are you going to do? So we really started with nothing, with no funding, with no people really engaged or involved, no website, no nothing. However, a strong desire to make a difference together with all the alumni consultants to clients wherever they may be in the world, knowing that there's a huge opportunity space. And I know that there are some people here also on the call who are, fellow consultants running, are part of other consultancies. We really believe that the challenge and also the opportunity of energy and energy transition in the years to come, in the decennia to come, is large enough for all of us. And I think it's almost like our collective responsibility to make everyone enthusiastic to stay in their field as long as possible, to think ahead, not just replicating the old, but really thinking about how can we do this better? How can we be more sustainable? And quite frankly, we're really keen to make sure everyone flourishes in that space. So in that sense, we really see ourselves as partners in that energy and energy transition environment. On the right-hand side, you see what we've come to in that 1 year that we've worked super hard with so many people, and weekly calls really have been our backbone to make sure we shape that together with literally everyone who wanted to be involved. So you see in a moment, and you hear a bit more from Gary on the next slide regarding our consultant base. We have more than 70 consultants affiliated with us. I think it's getting already close to 100. Not everyone is already displayed, but we have a lot of interest, which is great because obviously people often have enjoyed working together and still would enjoy working together. So that makes perfect sense to us. 25 consultants have been deployed. You will see on point 3 something that is maybe new. It's 2 co-CEOs. And people who have been engaged in the work of Pecten will have noticed that Gary and I are really a strong team together. And that is why we continue to work as a team together. Nothing changed really from what we've done in the last half year anyway, which was supposed to be a bit of an onboarding, but we really think this works, and that is how we want to continue that going forward. We have a website. We are cash positive already. We have really nice feedback from our clients and clients that do come back for the next and the one thereafter assignment. So that's all really good. We have a business plan in place with nice challenging goals that we're together going after, as well as a really well-established back office that makes sure we have our stuff sorted out when it comes to contracts and all those things that you would expect. And still, there's so many more ideas that we'd like to utilize from you as well as realize together with you. So let's go to the next slide and dive a little bit into the consultant arena. Gary, over to you.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to repeat a couple of things that Dagmar said because I think they're worth repeating. Because if I look at team highlights, if you like, over the last year, then certainly to any consultancy, establishing clients is important, and building up a portfolio of repeat clients is what we've been doing. And again, like all consultancies, pipelines of discussions with many other companies who we think will become consultants is important. So we have that client base, the beginning of a client base, well established. Dagmar just mentioned the number of consultants who want to be part of Pecten, but it's not just about individual consultants. Bringing people together with similar skills and experience from around the world to do things together that they might not be able to do separately as consultants on their own. So the practices, and I'll talk a bit more about that later, is also an important part of what we've started developing. Whether these are in technical areas like production technology or project reviews, as Olaf's just talked about, or whether it's mergers and acquisitions, supply chain, coaching and leadership. These are part of the offerings that we'll talk about in a moment again. Dagmar mentioned the co-creation because that's part of the Pecten DNA. It's not just about the leadership doing things, it's the involvement of anyone who wants to be part of Pecten to co-create who we are and what we do. And that's part of our reason for existence. It's part of the highlights and how we've got as far as we have. I've mentioned already multidisciplinary international teams. Again, that's part of our DNA. You know, we've all worked in multicultural, multidisciplinary teams. We come from and we've lived and worked across the globe. We've put together international multifunctional teams ourselves. And Olaf talked about the project evaluation review, and Tommy talked about the competence framework work. These were multidisciplinary international teams. So we can do that, and we've shown we can do that. And then again, financial and consultant goals. Dagmar just mentioned the financial bit. We've met our revenue target. We've paid off our loans, paid off our debt. We're doing better than break even to pay for our running costs, and we're building up some revenue such that we could do some really interesting things in terms of growing next year. But consultants and consultant engagement is also important to us. It's an important driver in Pecten. It was one of the reasons for setting Pecten up. Yeah, we've got those 25 plus consultants who've paid work for this year, but consultants, involvement and happiness is indeed also one of our KPIs. And now we're going to get another couple of our consultants to talk about the type of work they do already, but also the idea is that they'll be doing together with others similar sort of work for Pecten. And I hand over first to David.
Thanks, Gary. Hello, everyone. Good to see some faces that I haven't seen in a while. Some of what I'm going to say, you've already heard from the others that are speaking, but I go back as a starting point, as Gary just mentioned, the consultants we bring to the table have wide backgrounds, areas of expertise, nationalities, regions that we've worked. But one thing that we share in common is that we have a desire to apply our expertise, our experience, and our knowledge in helping others understand and improve business. And one of the areas that I've been working with, the planning stage of offerings that we may bring to clients, is around strategy into practice. And what does that actually mean? We often think of this more at a higher level. We're looking at strategic planning. We're looking at investment reviews, particularly investment reviews of mega projects. But it can also go into operational excellence. It can go into energy transition. Where and how do countries or companies position themselves for success in the energy transition? Getting down a level, it can go into, once you have strategies, it can go into particular elements like operational excellence. What's your maintenance strategy? What's your budgeting and planning process? So on this particular area, I just want potential clients to think about, we have the experience and the expertise to help you think about your business at that strategic level and bring a set of outside eyes to really do a critical assessment. Are you headed in the right? And hope that's you, and we have interest from others. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, David. Now move to Juliana, who's going to talk a bit about what she does and what she's planning to do.
Thank you, Gary. Hello, everybody. I'm talking to you from London today. And Gary approached me a short while ago to just say there's a few people who have some M&A background within the Pecten network, but with different backgrounds. Mine is legal. I was a lawyer for 22 years at Shell and did a lot of mergers, acquisitions, divestments, joint ventures around the world. I think on the call is Dick Odblath, who comes with a lot of commercial experience, and we have others with technical implementation, IT experience. So what Gary highlighted was we all do have our separate consultancies, and I do this work outside of the Pecten network. But the benefit of the Pecten network is that I think just that, you have the network, back to the multi that Gary has emphasized, multidisciplinary, multifunctional, multi-jurisdictional, and that's quite powerful, I think, for clients who need, in particular, strategic advice on approaching their divestments, acquisitions, joint ventures. And we're not going to be a huge body of people who are resourced up to do full execution of a whole lot of big deals, but I think we're certainly well placed to help at a strategic sort of level as far as what do clients need, how to go about things in the most efficient way, how to anticipate what might be down the road. And that's really combining, I think, between us, 5 or 6 of us so far, each with perhaps 25, 30 years. So put that all together from our respective disciplines, and I hope that that can be a very helpful offering. So just at the very beginning, thank you to Gary for pulling us together, but I think that's what we see on the road ahead.
Thank you very much, Juliana. Let's indeed look at the road ahead. It's as if Juliana's seen the next slide almost. So looking ahead for Pecten. So yeah, grow the strong reputation, increase the visibility. I think this webinar is the start of the road ahead. As from tomorrow, you'll be seeing a lot more of us in the market and talking. The growing to even more consultants. I know from working with other consultancies that the number of available consultancies is one thing. Consultants is one thing, but as important is how many of those consultants actually get work. And as I said already, consultant happiness and engagement is one of our Pecten KPIs. So yes, we're going to grow active consultants as we grow and we offer more things, but nevertheless, the idea is to get as many of them work through Pecten as possible. Grow the practices and their own business. You just heard from Juliana about one of the practices, mergers and acquisitions. There are others. We certainly see them as sort of mini consultancies, if you like, under the Pecten umbrella. And depending on their particular practice, they may well have different sorts of clients, depending on what those clients specifically want and what their needs are. And we expect major growth in 2025 in the works that the practices do. Firing on more cylinders is one of Dagmar's mantras. And indeed, that's how we're going to grow as quickly as we are in 2025. And there's a number of ways of doing this. Client directors are one of them. We're going to grow the number of client directors, both for our major clients, but also for companies we think have the potential to be clients, such that we can grow there. Rainmakers. You know, if people actually actively provide leads that turns into paid work, then we will give them an honorarium, pay them an honorarium of a mark of thanks to them. And this is also how we see everything growing. And we've paid a few of those out already. And very happy to do so because it means that Pecten is getting business. Regional offices. Our consultants have many nationalities and are based in many countries, from Canada and the US through Africa, Middle East, all the way to Australia and New Zealand. And in fact, I think we've probably covered them all in this call, despite the time differences. And so opening of small regional offices to facilitate our consultancy is part of our strategy here. And indeed, Pecten Learning, we see learning and development as one of the ways we can do it. If we go to the next slide, I want to quickly sort of talk a bit more about what we offer, although through our 4 consultants who have talked, we've done some things. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but basically, yeah, there's a number of offerings in what we call strategy into practice, which is what David has talked about. There's a number of offerings around asset development, and Olaf talked about the reviews, which are part of this. Energy transition is an important part of who we are as Pecten, and there's a number of people involved in this area already. I'll talk about it for a couple more minutes in a moment. And then we have indeed the business functions, not only M&A, but other practices across the list, which we can also offer via Pecten. And Pecten Learning, we talked about, resourcing is still part of that. If I talk a bit more in detail about some of these on the next slide. Strategy in practice. As Pecten consultants, have led companies and they've been on boards. They've been in management teams. They've led huge teams of technical experts. They've worked with governments, national companies, joint ventures. They've advised on strategies to also smaller and middle-sized independent companies. So indeed, this strategy level of turning it into something real is something that we can offer. practice into results. We have deep professional expertise within our consultants. Yeah, they've worked for Shell, but as I said, lots of other companies as well. They've worked in multinational, multicultural teams, and the type of reviews we can do and the type of the good things we can do for our clients in these areas is clear. Energy transition, yeah, but all of the Pecten consultants have a desire to use our transferable skills to accelerate the energy transition. And we have a number of consultants who are already working in decarbonisation, in carbon capture, in blue and green hydrogen, in geothermal, and different areas. So this is, again, an important part of what we do. But if we look at the next slide, then it's not just the technical that we offer. There's a range of other groups who are part of this. Julian has talked about mergers, acquisitions, and IPO. We have a supply chain team. We have an ESG team. Yeah, digitization, coaching and leadership practice. So there's a number of different areas that we can also support you with the Shell experience that we have and the experience outside Shell, together with Pecten Learning and Pecten Resourcing. And it's back to Dagmar.
So yeah, kind of starting to bring it a bit together, and I think really great to see how Gary, particularly with all of you together, has really evolved this picture of how we're all able to contribute to a big picture that is actually, well, quite impressive to build within 1 year. So I really would like to express big thanks to you, Gary, for putting so much personal time into this, because I really think without you it wouldn't have happened. So thanks for that. And
I disagree, because part of the Pecten DNA is that everyone has been involved in co-creation.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the spider in the web. So definitely, for sure, in a good way, you've been helping to really bring this together and listen, and communicating. That's what you do extremely well. And the question is, where do we go from here? And the invitation really is to everyone here on the call. So how can we grow together? Because we're really here to grow together with our clients, who we want to make utterly successful, as well as with our consultants. And so on the client base, I think Gary mentioned a few things that really are important to us. We are keen to prove our value to clients in a way that is really in service of the client, making sure we exactly slot into where you are at this point in time are most useful to building those skills in your own organization the way you want, so that when we go, you will not even notice it. The idea is really that you become more powerful because we've been there, and then basically in that sense not needed anymore. That is kind of the optimal situation for any client, right? So we really are keen to prove our value there, and make sure that you just simply get in touch with Gary or myself or any one of the consultants, really, to reach out to hear a bit more on what we could offer to you if you are in that area. For consultants, definitely a warm invitation to co-create. I think we've really shown that in the last year, that we want to be different in that sense. So different than Shell, for example, that where we all come from, that very much top-down drive that they are known for these days, while we do the opposite. We really are there to make sure we build on your ideas and skills and grow where your energy is going, obviously keeping in mind where the market is. So I think that is a really nice kind of co-creation we can achieve there, because we're constantly scanning what the market wants. So Gary, for example, has just spent the last 2 days on a conference and talking to a lot of people. So just make sure we tapped together, and I think then we can achieve a lot more together. I think we called that the power of us, and I think that's still true. So please make sure you are either visible as a consultant, and that is simply by making sure you register in the consulting part under your Shell alumni profile that you want to be a Pecten consultant, and you need to be a premium member. And you can also, even if you're not a premium member, apply to any of the jobs that you can find on the link that is displayed. You can also let us know that you are keen to share a course, for example, one that you have intellectual property rights for. So please think about all the ways you may want to create value for yourself as well as for Pecten, as well as the kind of client director, rainmaker, or practice leader roles that Gary was referencing before. There's job descriptions for them. So if you're interested to take a bigger role, a more substantial role, let us know. We're keen to hear and talk. So with that, I'd like to just, on my side, summarize with very short take-home messages. It's been a very special year. I never would have thought we'd come that far, quite frankly. I mean, if you start with a blank sheet of paper, you just gotta hope it's gonna be worth it. And it surely was worth it. From my point of view, we've come a long way, but we also see so many more things that are possible. So do expect more and be a part of it. It's very easy to reach us, Gary and myself. Everyone kind of has our WhatsApp messages as WhatsApp numbers. So please feel free to also share that with anyone who may be interested. Just feel, in that sense, that there is a permission for just passing our contact details on. So it's very easy to reach us. And so maybe very briefly back to you, Gary, for some closing remarks. You're on mute at the moment, Gary.
So I've just been looking at the questions, and there are lots of questions, Dagmar.
Cool.
In the list. So you've just
Perfect.
summarized it. Why don't we try and answer some of those?
Yep, let's do that. And I am going to this overview that hopefully everyone can now see as well on the screen. And on the left-hand side, you still see the QR code. So in case that you have not been able to go into it, just pick up your phone, open your photo program and point to the QR code. From there, you can pick up the link and you can put in any questions that you have. And I see indeed, wow, a really nice number. Well, thanks everyone for submitted already questions. And please make sure you also like the questions that really seem to be most useful to you. So just process-wise, we have 15 minutes left. I would suggest, Gary, you maybe want to pick a question that you want to answer yourself first. We go as far as we can in the 15 minutes, and the rest we will summarize and put into the follow-up email, as I already promised to some of you. So slides, recording, and the Q&A will come to you later.
Okay, so seeing as you have the 443, et cetera, in terms of how many people have supported each question, why don't we just go from the top and work our way through? Because some of them we've answered already, so I think that speeds things up. But the first one, is Pecten an extension of Shell and its culture, or is it intending to create its own culture and ways of working? I think you've answered that, Dagmar, but you might want to say it again.
I do believe we do things differently. I like to believe we do things differently. So hopefully we just take all the chocolate sides, and from that point of view, we then also create our own culture, but building on some of the good things, surely, that we all have learned and we are enthusiastic about. That creates that connection as well as kind of a truly new proposition.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, and I think that's something that Olaf said, which is, are we Shell? No. Is it Shell culture in some ways? Yes and no, because as Olaf said, quite often clients will not want just the Shell way or the total Shell way, but it has to be pragmatic. So we can use our Shell experience to do that as clients. And yeah, we certainly aim to be less bureaucratic and quicker. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And let me just dive right in with a question that is now on top, which is a question I can answer very well. What does Shell think about using Pecten as the name of the consultancy? So juicy question, maybe. Well, we have checked it with them. They were a bit surprised in the first place, but eventually they have accepted that. And so we went ahead with it once we knew that they would be okay. So all fine.
Yeah.
Gary, next question for you.
Typical consulting services that's been offered since inception. Well, we've mentioned some of them, but basically there's been a range of technical a range of such as production technology. There's been a range of reviews. There's been a number of different things. So I think we've probably covered that in what we've been talking about. And how many Pecten consultants? We've mentioned 70 plus, going up by the day. How do you become a Pecten consultant? Via the Shell Alumni Network, which is what Dagmar said. Only ex-Shell or also other backgrounds. So I am certainly open to other non-Shell support in terms of consultancy, because the important thing is, can we aid our clients to give them exactly what they want and what they should get? So Pecten first maybe, but we're broader in terms of how we find people.
We do make exceptions.
Dagmar?
And yeah, I think that's absolutely fine. I think that's the type of openness that we want to create. But then really, essentially, we are all Shell alumni. I think they need to fit that type of mindset. And I think that's how we have coined it so far. What are the ground rules that Pecten consultants must comply and abide? I would like to just basically say there is a really nice document, ways of working within Pecten, that we have developed for our Pecten consultants in the spirit of transparency. If you remember, one of the slides showed that this is a fundamental thing that we really want to adhere to and make sure we excel in. So in the next call on Wednesday the 25th, which is really only for people who are Pecten consultants, we will share that, and we will also have a bit of a process how you can sign up to that, because it's a new document that you will not have seen yet. But yeah, expect something very clear and very helpful, I think, on that side. I've seen it already and I'm enthusiastic.
Tony's question, asset development. Seems to lack operational excellence deliverable. Okay, so the quick overview, the pictogram that we showed is not full. It gives an idea of the sorts of things we can do. So I actually agree with you that there's clear operational excellence things within that and within other areas. And indeed, we have a number of subservice people within the Pecten community. So from that aspect, we can talk a bit more about that as well, if a client wishes to talk about that, or indeed at the Pecten only call.
Yeah,
Gary, that should read subsurface disciplines. It's a typo in there. And someone else mentioned
We assumed that, Tony. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Okay.
Well, you know what? We have 10 minutes to go, and we have a few more questions. I'm just going to motor through in the spirit of really accomplishing. Our non-technical backgrounds welcome, totally. We really believe in that synergy between the technical core as well as the functional background that really makes some of these things work, quite frankly, and they can also be very much be useful in isolation. So I think extremely important, those functional background as well. I think David wants to come in. David Purvis, go ahead.
Yeah, there was may have been missed. It had a fair number of votes. Was how do you source?
Does it? I haven't seen the one. Let me.
It's fourth on the list at the moment with 2 votes. Fourth on the list.
It showed 3 on my my phone.
Oh, okay. I've only got, well, on my app it says 2, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Source. How does let's just jump into that. How does Pecten plan to source consulting opportunities?
Okay, there's a number of ways, and we can talk about it more in the Pecten only call. But if I was a client, I'd want indeed to know that we have a large number of consultants who are Pecten consultants, who you can see on the website. Nevertheless, we use our network. That was the number one in terms of access in why clients would get the benefit from Pecten. We advertise, or we open resource in Shell terminology where possible. And also via practice leads, via client directors. There's a number of different ways in which we resource, but basically partly open, partly through the network.
Well, this is a really important topic, and we know that. And you know, if somebody came from our consulting community and says, "I really have this job to fill," of course, that person would take a role, and also who would get that job, right? So there's a couple of scenarios, and we can go probably through a couple of the kind of most frequently occurring ones to demonstrate how that works. But the essence, I think Gary has nicely highlighted. We post whenever we can, and sometimes things need to be really fast, and it's already pretty clear who has the skills that we need, and the client, in the end of the day, usually has the last word, you know, obviously, and that is how it should be.
Yeah. So indeed, if I'm a client, you can be assured that we have different ways to make sure we find the right people for you. Yeah.
Okay, so how does, I think that one was just answered. Is there an intention from Pecten to look into our professional profiles?
Maybe we can take that in the next Pecten only call.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think we definitely will all benefit if we really know our consultants well. So I would really recommend everyone to make sure that your profile on LinkedIn, as well as on the Shell Alumni Network, are up to date. And only if you indicate in your Shell Alumni Network that you want to be a Pecten consultant, only in that case, the information is transferred to Pecten. We handle a audit ready anytime policy, and we really stick to those rules. There's nothing shared from Sun to Pecten unless you indicate it very clearly, and then the information is passed across. So I think, yeah, obviously always make sure things are up to date.
Yeah.
I think that one we kind of answered, or not?
Which one? Yes, we've answered that one. Yeah. I think
so most welcome. Maybe just reiterate one more time: the leadership, commercial, risk, coaching, or any other non-technical backgrounds, extremely welcome. Absolutely.
What kinds of skills have been in demand? It's been a real mix of different things so far. So yeah, I find it difficult to say which ones have been most in demand. It's been a range of technical to non-technical. It's been a real mix. I think that's the best way. The next one, WRFM and project management skills needed. Yes. I mean, we have some people who do that, but that's both of them welcome. And Shamia, contact me separately immediately after the call or tomorrow, or I will contact you if you're looking for people who can give a short, I presume, short course on petroleum economics and decision making. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I think we can take that one offline.
Yep, and we can definitely do that.
All right. And I just wanted to bring a definition of the WRFM from Hans Mess, who we always can rely on for best practices. He says, what really fucking matters, I think he says. So we're quite urgently aware of the importance of these skills. And I mean, this is really across industries. Let's be clear. There's always a shortage on project management skills for large, complex projects. This is a crown discipline, and we know we have a couple of amazing people in that space. Good. I'm not clear on the Pecten business model. Is Pecten the face to the customer? And what cut does it take from customer revenue? I think, Gary, that's a nice one for you.
Yeah. So our preferred model is that Pecten has the contract with the client, and Pecten then has contracts with the consultants who will be doing the work. So that's a normal way of doing things. So with similar consultancies to us, and that's what we do. So yes, Pecten is the face of the customer. Although when the practices develop more and are starting doing their own business, they're also the face of Pecten. So the Pecten remains the face. Whatever. What cut does it take from customer revenue? That's commercially sensitive. So if you're a Pecten consultant, we can talk about that at the next course. But in general, part of our setup is that we charge a much smaller percentage than other similar consultancies. That was part of the starting point from Pecten, and that remains the case.
That's a nice bridge as well to the next question. As ex-Shell, is there a perception that we could be too expensive? There's two things to say about it. So first of all, Gary was already alluding to the fact that we are really trying to make sure we have margins that are decent and are good story to tell for everyone involved. But also maybe it's good to realize that the word Pecten means something to probably pretty much everyone here on the call. But for the stranger in the street, it's just a word. It's like a bit of a code word for Shell. So not everyone will immediately associate Pecten with Shell and therefore with maybe expensive of platinum plated or whatever the association may be that people have. So I think generally we're hopefully starting with a storyline that is about competence and then everything else hopefully will be worth it as we go into more detail with the offer stage.
Yeah. What is the primary nature of Pecten's consultancy? Technical, strategic, etc. Are they overlapping or conflicting with Shell Global Solutions' reign? Is the reign of Shell Global Solutions over? So there isn't a primary nature of Pecten. I would say I do the strategic, the technical, the business functions are all equal in my mind. Dagmar, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think we all know that Shell has let many people go. So I think the old Shell Global Solutions is really not what it is today. So from my perspective, we have an important role to play to support some of the customers that maybe in the past were serviced by Shell Global Solutions. But I haven't really, and I really mean it genuinely, not seen any sensitivity in that area.
Good.
I see a question from Jeremy around broad scenario, strategic thinking, energy transition consulting and training. Yes, 100%, Jeremy. We would absolutely love to have that conversation. And I've already, reached out to you in that regard. Let's talk and see what may be a good idea. But we absolutely think there's a huge need for that, right? I mean, there's a lot of big transitions that happen on country level, on organizational level, on commercial level, company level. So yeah, I think there's a huge need for more Jeremys, and if we can kind of build up some people who to team up with you to do that in your spirit and together with you, I think that would be good for the world. And I truly mean that. So I'm conscious of time. I would like to wrap it up here, even though there's a few more questions that have come up, because I think there's always more to talk about, and hopefully it's absolutely not the last time we speak. We're always happy to reconnect, and we'll have updates like this one on a regular basis as and when needed. So just like to thank everyone very much before I give the word back to Gary to really have the final word. Yeah, really appreciate your time and enthusiasm in the last year. We wouldn't have come as far if it was not for you all in many ways, either clients or consultants, and in particular Gary. So thanks again, Gary, for your leadership.
Yeah, I'm going to answer one other of the questions because that was in your invitation anyway. Will the slides be available after the presentation? Even better than that, the recording will be available to anyone who has joined the recording, and also to those that signed up for the webinar but didn't attend. Is that correct, Dagmar?
Yeah, absolutely. So those three things, so the recording, the slides, as well as the Q&As, will come your way.
Yeah. So for those of you on the call who represent other companies and potential clients, we're looking very much, and I saw a couple of people from Kazakhstan who were in the call, I was pleased to see. Then clearly we'll be looking forward to also talking to you in more detail about how we might be able to help.
Thanks everyone for
Dagmar,
now.
last word for you.
Well, thanks everyone, and let's keep in touch, and please feel free to contact us anytime. Bye for now. Have a good
Thank you,
rest of the
everyone.
day. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.